Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode 183. This week, our illustrious leader Tom McKenna joins Mike and I, and we discuss paste wax recipes, jigs on a sliding table saw, cement shop floors, and we calm one reader's concerns about scratches on his blade after he's done honing. But first, as always, or recently as always, I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on here in the fine woodworking world. About a week after this episode airs, issue number 274 should be in your mailboxes. We've got a really cool project made by Willie Sundry out on the West Coast. It's an arts and crafts bookcase, Limbert design, a classic piece, and a lot of fun techniques. We have the modern master of shaker furniture, Christian Bexford, doing something very, very not shaker. He's doing a swing arm lamp. It's a very modern piece, but a very cool, simple design. Chris has made a lot of them, so of course he has his methods nailed down, and it's a fun, fast build. One thing that I'm personally very excited about is Mike Farrington, the great Mike Farrington of YouTube fame, hits the pages of Fine Woodworking for the first time doing a hexagonal Kumiko design utilizing the table saw for the grid. And also, the last thing that I want to mention, we have Audie Culver and Ivy Ciosi of Ciosi Design in Indiana doing a really modern take on slab inlays that might just change the way you think about bow ties. But enough promoting the new issue. If you're a subscriber, it should be in your mailboxes next week. If you're an unlimited member, that magazine subscription is part of your membership. So you'll be experiencing the joy of issue 274 of Fine Woodworking Magazine as well. All right, on with the show. So, Tom, we are recording, just so you know. You haven't been here for a non-intro intro.
I was waiting for the big intro.
Yep.
It's still really awkward. You just
it's always going to be awkward.
There's no transition.
It's
really hard
three
to take.
people from our office. That's going to be awkward.
Well, I'm used to coming out, with the audience and applauding, and we get the.
I forgot there used to be applause at the beginning. I think that was the first thing I changed.
Start playing the theme from the Muppet Show or something,
What,
No, that's something else.
what happened to all those people? Anyway, the applause people we used to bring in.
They're in the old shop.
They're in the dumpster.
Before we get going, I want to give a big on-air thank you very much to Ben Strano, who finally came through and made me a spoon.
Yes.
And not only is this spoon a good, working, useful spoon, it's awesome. I will post pictures of it on my next Instagram, maybe the next few Instagrams.
I don't know if I can handle that influx.
I'm going to show a video of the spoon in use. Anyway, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Really cool.
I'm sorry it took so long, but you do realize that when Mike Pekovich asks for something, you want to deliver what Mike Pekovich would deliver.
Huh.
And I think that was the 8th spoon I made for you.
You brought one spoon, and I loved it. It was like, oh, this is fine. And you took it from me, and you broke it right in front of me.
I wanted to make it clear that this was not the spoon.
This is not the final spoon. Yeah, thanks for mine, by the way.
There's more to go. Now that I have crested this peak, I can continue on with my life.
Yeah, Barry's rice paddle was just...
I know.
That was just eating me up.
It was like that was like, okay, I can do this quick. And then it was like right back to like bending blanks all night, like going through iteration after iteration.
Nothing is
for
ever,
your spoon.
Nothing is ever quick, Ben.
No, but yeah, because that one you're like, oh, can I use this until? And I was like, nope.
Yeah, no.
So I still have the broken one.
Did it have a food safe finish?
There is no finish on the spoon.
Really?
So it is food safe.
How'd you polish that?
Burnished. It's actually
The dog licked it for like 2 hours.
It's there's a video that I'll link to, making note. Emmett burnishing video. Sorry. Normally I'm making notes while you guys are talking. There's a video that we have of Emmett Von Driesch burnishing spoons, and he uses a piece of deer antler
I was going to say
that
he's
he's carved away
or something. Yeah.
and also he uses the end of a pestle from a mortise and pestle set that is like non-glazed.
If you're looking for deer antlers, I know I'm being totally serious.
Really?
My pet store, it's called Pets Club, All Pets Club. They sell deer antlers for dogs to chew on.
Wouldn't that get stinky? Well,
Dogs
I guess
are stinky in general.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you've got a dog that's eating deer antlers, you probably have a stinky dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't try to sand any sort of antler on a belt sander.
Oh,
God, that's the smelliest smell.
How do you know?
Does it smell like
You
hair?
sanded deer antlers?
It wasn't deer antler. It was some sort of.
People turn them.
It was like
Yeah.
it was like a sheep's horn.
Wow.
I was turning it into literally like a horn that you
I
blow.
actually never heard of that.
So
Why were you? What?
Mike is hoping we move on.
The early years. You sure it was a horn that you blow? Was it a musical instrument or a drinking thing? Or all right. Well, speaking of drinking, you've recently been making.
Why am I speaking
you
of drinking?
made a coffee table for your son's dorm room, so of course drinking will come.
No.
Drinking
he's
coffee.
he's only 18. It's hot Cheetos and Kool-Aid,
Okay.
or maybe hot Cheetos and water.
All right.
They're engineering kids. They're not drinking, are they? That Jeff had a really big laugh.
I started in engineering school.
And never finished.
I did have to keep telling my son Ryan to not be gentle with the table. Let it rip.
I love the fact that you would. I don't think I would make a college kid anything because they're just going to destroy it. But you're like, no,
they're not. It already has LED lights underneath it that are synced to the music in the room.
Okay, these engineering
And
students
the
are actually
movies,
studying.
it's all Alexa. It's all it's craziness.
Alexa, turn the coffee table on.
Yeah, I mean, some of the kids they had in his dorm. No, in one of the dorms, they used to have swiping key locks for their doors, and they had to change it because the engineering kids figured out how to, hack the codes, and so they can get into any room. And they had to do the same thing for the washing machines and dryers in the basement of the dorm. Huh. They had to make it. It's basically free now because all the kids were figuring out how to get around it. It was pretty funny.
But the European history majors, they're good.
Yeah, right. They're still paying for their laundry.
I was a music major, so we didn't do laundry. So.
Anyway,
all right,
that was a long roundabout.
I was amused by that. All right, so let's answer some questions. First
I just
one,
did.
but there's more. Oh, there's so many more. This first one is from. Speaking of so many more, we need to do a lightning round soon. From Fabian. All right. I have a sliding table saw and struggle to convert all the jigs mentioned in the magazine to fit my saw. How would you attach, for example, a Kumiko grid jig used by Mike in the article Spice Up Your Work with Kumiko? Do I fasten it with bolts to the crosscut fence or just let it ride in the one miter slot in the sliding table? In either case, it is secured to just the left side of the blade.
It's a good question.
So he mentioned that he has
what brand?
A hammer or hammer.
Hammer.
No, I can't say it. I'm done for the day. Thank you. All right.
What?
A Hammer K3
Okay.
Winner.
Well,
which that was a little weird of them to name it Winner.
That's better than chicken dinner.
True.
I've never really used a sliding table saw for I've tried them, but I actually have not been to too many shops where the author has one, but Tom McLaughlin had one for rough cut,
right.
And he had no qualms about making a new sled for it. And I don't remember. I was trying to find photos from when I was up there of the crosscut sled that he made for his sliding table saw, and he did it because he uses a tenoning jig on the crosscut sled, and so he had to modify it. He didn't want to.
Did it clamp to the crosscut rail, or
No.
did it just ride in the?
Well,
are
that's
there
what
miter
I
slots?
think he had two different ways, and I'm sorry I can't. I was trying to find the other jig. I saw the one crosscut sled that he had a tenoning jig attached to that slid in. I thought it was sliding in two slots, but maybe there was only one. But
I think it did attach to the crosscut fence because I remember seeing it and thinking.
I'll try to find a better. I'll have to look at photos more. I didn't, on those photo shoots, I wasn't like diving into like technique too much. I was just trying to get, big kind of photos for the website. And
Well, I know that. I think there's two questions here. Like, how would you attach it? But then also, the Hummer does have a miter slot in the sliding fence portion. But is there a problem only having one guide on a crosscut fence?
You can just maybe get a little more
pivot
flex,
or
a little
whatever.
more slop to it. I know Matt Kenny he was a fan of the single runner crosscut sled for miters and that kind of stuff. I think you can get by with it. I think if you've got a sliding table and you've got a really nice little crosscut fence, what do you call that? It's not a miter gauge on a sliding table. Whatever it is, that
fence.
part.
Whatever, crosscut
Well,
fence.
it's not a rib fence, so crosscut fence.
Yeah,
Man, we're really authorities on this subject here, aren't we?
that's because we don't own them.
I mean, what I do, I just have a piece of MDF with that little kind of finger thing, registration pin glued into it, and I just clamp it to my crosscut sled. And you could tap it a little left and right to change the spacing on the grid if you're trying to fit a specific opening in a piece of furniture you're making. So I might try just that, clamping a piece of MDF with your little indexing pin to whatever crosscut fence you already have, and see if that works. I don't know. Why it
Well,
wouldn't
especially
work.
for Kumiko, because you're changing that grid based on the size of the blah blah, the piece you're making.
Right.
So now, like a crosscut sled, you're wanting zero clearance, and so you do want that to be registered. You do want that to be locked into a position every single time. That's consistent.
Yeah, I mean, the benefit of the crosscut sled is that it has a base that moves along the table and it carries a piece across. So you're right. I might, and then, okay, so now I'm attaching sort of an L fence to my crosscut fence. So there's a base and a back, in which case I still need an adjustable fence, auxiliary fence with the indexing pin that I can move side to side based on that. So now it starts to get complicated.
So I think I looked up. I should have given Jeff a photo of this, but the Hummer at least has what looks like a T-track in the front of the crosscut fence.
Okay.
So what if you could attach whatever you want with T-nuts, or they've got those little inserts, those little
Sure.
Yeah, there's a track on.
yeah, and you can buy little inserts that slide in there that are threaded.
Little recess hex set or something
Yeah.
on the face to lock it down or
And
something.
I've also seen ones like that you can put them in there, thread a screw in, and it'll stay in one position.
Okay.
So that could be your registration point.
Yeah.
And then you make a crosscut sled or fence or whatever that butts up against that
Okay.
for consistency's sake.
Yeah. I don't think it really matters because I think the main reason Fabian asked this question is just to sort of draw attention to the fact he has a sliding table saw.
And no one else does. No.
So, Fabian, you'll figure it out. You probably already
I
have
have
figured
a
it out.
Jaguar, and in the wintertime, the door handle sticks a little bit. And I don't know.
He's probably thinking,
Cadillac problems.
for the little cuts that he's going to make, pushing that whole table is like overkill.
There's
Kind of-
a lot of back and forth. So there's like
Yeah.
a lot of mass to that. I know we did
Yeah.
the article on pros and cons of sliding tables. And one of them is if you're doing like a lot of pieces, a lot of cuts, just, the mass of the table, pushing it through the cut, pulling it back and forth. That was one of the drawbacks of it. Just maybe get a second table saw for Kumiko.
There are people who, like
Well,
Laughlin has two.
no. Yeah. I mean, why not get a job site saw even?
Michael
maybe.
Cullen
Well,
has
maybe not.
two.
A lot of pros will have a second table saw with a dado blade set up in it all the time.
Oh, so
How
he needs
cool
three.
is that?
So you need 3.
Pretty much.
And a radial arm saw just for kicks.
No.
Come on, Ben.
No.
Come on, Ben.
All right. Let's see. Question number 2 is from Chris. This one's for you, Mike.
Right on.
I hope you came prepared.
I did.
Good.
Hope he has a solution.
You can't help yourself. I'm on the lookout for a new paste wax solution. Okay. I'm totally over the petroleum smell of commercial options and would love something simple with just a little bit of luster to apply to my projects. Has Mike ever shared his recipe to attempt to recreate the no longer available Goddard's Cabinet Maker's wax? I never used the product in its original form, but I'm sold on the description of it. Something natural, simple, and lemon-scented. Sounds like a perfect solution to
Sounds
me.
like a margarita.
Yeah, it does.
So
Margarita episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 different components to making your own wax, which is really, really simple to do. There's a lot of different recipes online. If you just Google paste wax recipe, the basic recipe I use, and I can't tell you the exact proportions of everything. It's a blend of 3 waxes: paraffin, beeswax, and carnauba wax. They each have kind of their own characteristics. Paraffin, I think on its own can be a little bit greasy. Beeswax can be a little bit sticky, and carnauba wax is just really, really hard. So it's hard to kind of buff out to a good sheen. Blending all 3 together, and you get sort of a nice combination. And then you need basically some sort of solvent. Mix it in while everything is warm in order to keep it kind of not hard at room temperature, pasty. So usually that's some sort of oil-based solvent, mineral spirits, turpentine. Some waxes like bry wax is really, really smelly. It's more of like a toluene solvent, so it flashes off really quick. The wax dries really hard. I use that because they have like really, really dark waxes available, which is cool. So that's a basic recipe. And for me, what I was looking for to replace the Goddard's wax, which is sort of a lemon-scented wax, what I liked about it is there's certain times when I like to have a can of wax just open on my bench top if I'm screwing back panels or something like that, and you want to wax each screw. You got a can of wax on your bench, and it's just kind of there. And like a really, really smelly wax will just give me a headache. So what I liked about the Goddard's wax was that it didn't. It just smelled nice. And it was like a lemon scent, so it was nice for drawer sides and interior spaces and something like that. So it's easy, really easy to make a wax. I found that to be the case. What was a little bit more challenging was to make a wax that wasn't really smelly. And a turpentine is horrendously smelly. I made you smell some.
That was... that was rough, man.
So that was kind of a non-starter. Wax worked really well, though. So then I went with a odorless mineral spirits, and then I added like a lemon essential oil to it. And it was like, it was still kind of smelly in not a good way. And the solution I happened upon, which really solved the problem for me, was using a citrus thinner available in art stores, which smells like oranges. So the thinner itself had a good smell to it. I added lemon essential oil to that, and that kind of solved it for me. So that gives me a wax which smells really, really good.
Smelled really tasty, actually.
I made Ben smell that one too.
It was.
Dip a finger in.
Yeah. It kind of smelled like a lemon pastry or something like that. And all of a sudden I was hungry.
Yeah, it's like, that's enough, Ben.
Yeah.
Give me the wax back.
put it down. Don't grab a spoon.
So in terms of specific proportion, and then there's lots of other different types of things you can add to it. Don Williams, who's like a leading authority on like traditional finishes and finishing, he has a little blog website called donsbarn.com. And he actually recently, I couldn't find the recipe that I went off of. I thought he had come up with it, but I went on his site, and he basically had a list of 9 different recipes that he had sort of gone through to sort of dial in exactly what he wanted. And there were some odd ingredients in there as well. Like he used shellac wax.
I have newt.
I have newt, rotten stone, acrylic beads, which I have no idea what those are. So basically, he was. And check out that website because it kind of gives like a lot of different ways you can go. You know, anything from just beeswax and turpentine to beeswax and linseed oil is cool. To lots of other different things. But for me, the key to something that smelled decent was using the citrus thinner instead of the mineral spirits or turpentine.
Is that the same stuff that is non-toxic, like paint remover? Is that the same, the pinky stuff that you buy?
No.
Or orange. It's orange colored at Home Depot or Lowe's.
That sort of citrus stripper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
different stuff.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is basically,
Okay.
it's like I guess it's a citrus-based paint thinner.
Okay.
I'll say this: I recently got some spray citrus stripper because my son is into refinishing and totally ruining Hot Wheels, but that citrus stripper, I will never use anything but that now.
Oh, really?
It's phenomenal.
Okay.
So citrus is the way to go, apparently.
Usually stuff that is not bad for you doesn't work very well.
I don't think I'm gonna spray this all over my face or something like that, but
If you do, just record it. Well, I'm somewhat offended by Chris's comment about the chemical smell, the petroleum smell.
why is that? You like
It's
it?
funny. I used to use Johnson's paste wax, and I still have a can of it, but I like the smell. There's a reason, though. It's kind of a stupid reason, but where I was growing up, we had hardwood floors in my house, and once a year,
That smell.
my
yeah.
mom would buff. Like my dad would rent, a floor buffer, and he would polish the floor, and the whole house smelled like that. So
That real piney smell. It smelled good. Yeah.
yeah, I liked it. But it does. I think the older I get, the more sensitive I am to that
Yeah.
smell. And
Right.
so I'm with Mike when I was using the Johnson the last time, it started to kind of make me gag a little bit. So I went out and I bought some. Did you pronounce it Brywax?
It is Brywax.
It is
I flipped
Brywax.
this up.
Okay.
I would say brie wax,
always
but I
called
started
it
saying
brie
No,
wax.
it's okay. So I was working in a hardware store in Nashville. We used to call it brie wax up. Sorry, we used to call it brie wax up here. In Nashville, they called it brie wax. I was like, what's wrong with you people calling it brie wax? And the saying, the slogan used to be, "Brie wax is my wax."
Oh.
Brie wax is my wax.
Brywax is rewax. But anyway, Brywax sells a product that I found at a Woodcraft called Natural Creamed Beeswax, and I tried it, and it's really nice. I'm not sure. I've only used it once, and I'm not sure I liked how it buffed out totally. But I'm certainly going to try it again. And one thing that I like about it, what I had to do with the Johnson's paste wax, and Mike, like probably 13, 14 years ago, you gave me this tip because I was complaining about how long it took me to get the wax off after I put it on. And
Right.
you're like, yeah, you got to thin it. And so you have to thin it. And so there comes the mineral spirit, more of that mineral spirit
Right.
smell.
Right.
But with this other product, the Brywax beeswax finish, wax rather, it went on smooth and buffed out. It was easy to remove, but I'm not sure I like the sheen.
That's really interesting. I want to try that. You use turpentine to thin your wax when you're.
I used that citrus thinner last time. I typically use that because it smells better.
Okay.
I think it doesn't evaporate as quickly. That might be the downside of
Okay.
it, but it tends to work fine. Yeah.
No, but when you're applying wax to a finish, just the other
Yeah.
day, weren't you using turpentine?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it was. I don't remember.
Because I remember we
Go back to the videotape.
Turpentine to me is paint thinner. I actually find pleasing.
Yeah.
The smell.
Oh, the pure gum spirits of turpentine. That's like, whew.
That stuff is nasty.
I like it because that's the smell of art school. I grew up with that smell in the
That's
hallways.
right. The hallway smelled like that.
Which
You're
is why I
right.
thought the wax would smell good, but it didn't. Something
Oh,
like
it's bad, man.
something went wrong there. And then you can color the wax as well. You can use those tinting colors from finishing supply places and stuff. I use asphaltum, which is just asphalt goop. I buy it from art supply stores. It's used as an acid resist in etching. You can get it from home centers. It's basically roofing tar without the fiber in it. So I think it's called
Non-fibered
non-fibered roofing tar. But you have to buy like a 5-gallon thing of it
You
or
should be able
something.
to get quartz.
So if you can, same stuff. It's really thick and goopy. Pre-thin it with mineral spirits first until it's more liquid, and then you can add that to your wax while it's still, melted, which I just buy an old crock pot from a thrift store for doing all my wax with. And that works really well. That's a nice way to color it as well.
Speaking of buying an old crock pot, I finally hit the point where my wife was like, maybe we need to get you your own
Yeah.
pot for
For cooking wood?
Yeah, I was boiling cherry to make Mike's spoon, and I think it took a little too long to scrub out after the last one. And she was it was, I have pots for dyeing things, right? And you should use those from now on. I was like, oh, okay. I finally hit that line with her.
Yeah. And then you hit the point where you've got your own iron in the shop.
I do have my own iron in the
Yeah.
shop. Yep. 'Cause you do not touch her iron.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing worse would be touching her scissors.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
No,
Yes.
scissors. Man, scissors disappear in my house. Like, and I keep them actually hidden in my shop. And when Christmas was rolling around, we were all wrapping gifts, and there was some missing, and so my wife is like, "Hey, why don't you bring up the scissors from your shop? We can use those." And I'm like,
I don't know.
I don't have any scissors down there. Nope.
What do you
And
need
sure-
cut? I'll go in my shop and cut it for you.
Exactly. I was just like, these aren't leaving. And I caved and I brought it up, and lo and behold, I can't find the darn things.
You should.
Oh, yeah.
But you could always. I brought them down here to sharpen. But then you'd have to know how to
No,
sharpen scissors.
it's mine. You know, everyone. It's funny. People lose scissors in my house. They just disappear. It's like, some people lose socks. We lose scissors, and I didn't want to lose my shop scissors because they're really valuable.
My wife for Christmas actually got me like this huge set of Milwaukee shears or scissors or whatever, and it's like, this is for your shop, and they're really nice. They're Milwaukee, so they feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, scissors. All right, I think it's time for. We have not done anything but smooth move in a while because we keep changing the cast so much, and everybody's like, "Oh, I've got a great smooth move." It's been
Everybody
a
has
while.
a smooth
And,
move.
Mike
Yeah.
and I are kind of. I don't want to say we're smooth moved out.
Oh, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm fresh up, so I'm good.
But it is time for all-time favorite tool of all time for this week. Who wants to go first?
Not it.
I'll go. My all-time favorite tool of all time for this week. I really had a hard time with this because I have just been in Nirvana. I've just been having so much fun in my shop because it's done-ish. And everything I go to do is just like, I'm just dancing around my shop basically. But the one thing that has brought me not the most joy, but the most confidence has been the new Arc Shark guard for my Unisaw. And it was expensive. It was like $200, but honestly, when I did the math on it, that $200 riving knife and guard, outside of a new saw stop, there's no reason for me to get a new table saw. That saw is good to go. There's no upgrades unless I go all the way. So that with that $200 upgrade, that made my table saw worth anything up to $3,000. Because once it's $3,000, I'm buying a saw
Yeah.
stop.
What do you
But
like about it? So it's
It's a guard.
so
it's
is
a
the guard
riving knife and it's a
built-in dust
guard.
collection.
It's got built-in dust collection. I don't have a dust collector.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can order it
You-
with a 2.5-inch port.
Oh, you don't have a dust collector?
You can order it with a 2.5-inch port or 4-inch port. I ordered it with the 4-inch port, thinking one day.
Does it tilt?
It tilts with the blade. It does not change height.
Oh, so you have
So
to.
you have to manually change the height. So At one point, I will probably raise the blade accidentally into the riving knife. I know this.
Which is good that you don't have a saw stop.
There you go. Yeah. But it for all intents and purposes, besides manually changing the height, it acts just like a riving knife. It's curved like the blade. You can get it tight to the back of the blade no matter what the height of the blade is. It was a little bit finicky to set up. There was 0 instructions that came with it. But the riving knife alone, I think, is like $90, $95, maybe $100. I decided to just go with the guard, and when the guard came, my brother was at the shop, and both of us were just amazed at the engineering in it. It was just really well thought out. The guard comes on and off the knife as fast as can be. Everything about it was really, really well thought out. This is not the guard that came with your saw and you threw out. This is the guard that you wish came with your saw.
Cool.
So anybody out there who wants to upgrade but just can't afford it right now, this is a really, really good thing to hold you over.
Yeah. Or, another cheaper option is to make a splitter. It doesn't come with the guard, though. So
No guard.
Yeah.
Definitely, at bare
And
minimum.
no tilting.
Bare minimum, make a splitter. There's no reason not
Yeah.
to have some sort of a splitter for most of your cuts.
They're easy. They're easy to make.
Yeah. But this is a fantastic piece of kit. I love it.
Cool.
Who's next?
Me?
Go ahead.
Well, it's not a really funky thing like Ben has, but I made this coffee table, and I glued up the top, and I had made the top out of birch because this thing was going to a dorm room, and I wanted something tough and durable for it.
Solid birch or Baltic?
Solid. But I had I had a bunch of birch boards lying around that I milled up, and they were not highly figured pieces. And so, I got the tabletop all glued up, and there are some places that I had to level. And so I was like, I had my smoother sharpened, my low angle sharpened. I was ready to rock, some hand plane work. So I'm into 1 or 2 passes into the top, and all of a sudden the plane just goes, and then it just gets stuck. I'm like, all right, lighter cut. And I try it again, same thing. And I'm looking at the board, and I'm like, what am I hitting? What am I doing? So I try the other way, and I had the same kind of hiccup, like that same, grab. It's like, oh, that's weird. So I started working the other side, and I had it in a couple of sections on the board, and I swear I couldn't see what was doing it. Like, it didn't look like the grain was changing any direction, but turns out birch, I think Mike and I were talking about it earlier this week, birch has these little hidden pockets of like changing direction. It was really kind of weird. And so I went to my scraper and my cabinet scraper, and those are my all-time favorite tools of all time this week, because it's the card scraper cleaned up those areas that I kind of tore apart.
Right.
And then the cabinet scraper kind of came in after, and I was able to do kind of the whole tabletop.
What kind of cabinet scraper do you have? I've never used
I have
one.
a Kuntz.
With the handles on the side.
Yeah,
And then-
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to, every time I use it, I keep thinking, man, I want to upgrade the blade. I want to put a thicker piece in there. It works fine, but I think if I upgraded, took one of my, thicker Lee Nielsen scrapers and modified it to fit the cabinet scraper, it would work better. But
okay, so a cabinet scraper is it just a handle?
yeah,
for
it looks like it looks like a kind of a high riding spoke shave in a way. It's got a small flat sole, probably like maybe 2 inches in area on the bottom. The blade fits into a throat, and there's a nut or bolt rather, no nut, that screws into it, and then it flexes the blade to create a sharper cut or a more heavy cut versus a light cut. I
Because
think that's-
the blade is sort of tilted forward, so as you tighten that little wing nut from
Yeah.
the back and it flexes it actually flexes it down
Yeah.
below the sole into the cut.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a great that thing. Years ago, I had it as one of my all-time favorite tools because I bought it for like $2, and it was a wreck, and it was really like my first hand tool rehab thing, and I fixed it up, flattened the sole, polished it up, and cleaned it up, and it works like a charm. So the scrapers are just when you get into a jam, they can just help you out so quickly, and they're so easy to sharpen, put a new burr on, and it was cool. But yeah, I was shocked, and when I finally got the top all done and put a finish on it, then I saw the areas, and they were just little. I don't know. It was almost like they looked like a tube almost under the grain, where the grain just kind of gnarled up, and it wasn't apparent to me while I was working it dry. But beware, birch.
When do you use a cabinet scraper? When do you use a handheld, like a card scraper?
For card scrapers, I use to typically clean up areas. I think I broke out the cabinet scraper because once I did the, trying to clean up the area, the small spots that were really torn up, I wanted to get a better level on it.
Okay.
So that's when I used the card scraper, and it's not like a hand plane for sure, but it got me to a point that I could stand confidently and get the finish done. I was on deadline, so I was in a rush.
The LED shipment was coming in.
Yeah, that's right. But that's actually, that would be a question for Mike. Do you have a cabinet scraper, or do you?
It's a hand tool, so he has
I'm
it.
sure he has one.
I do. I don't use. I've sort of just kind of gone to card scrapers all the time, but where I used to use the cabinet scraper was like cleaning off, periodically flattening my bench top, getting rid of all the glue and finishes and that kind of stuff. Or if you have a big panel glue up and there's some heavy glue on there, you don't want to take a hand plane to it, and your card scraper isn't quite aggressive enough. I find the cabinet scraper is really good at sort of doing that rough leveling.
Okay.
Because a blade on there, you typically, instead of having a square edge, the edge is honed or ground at 45 degrees, and you put like a really heavy burr on it. You turn a really heavy hook on it, and it lasts longer. So you can do some work. You got to be careful that you don't hang around in one spot for too long, because you can get a hollow there.
Yeah.
But
that's what I was worried about with my card scraper, that I was creating this slight hollow, trying to clean it up.
yeah, and you don't burn your thumbs with that thing.
That's true.
So.
The one thing this situation made me realize, though, that I think I'm going to convert one of my bevel up planes to a high angle, because I don't have a high angle sharpened plane. I think that would have
just get an extra blade.
Yeah.
Give that a try.
So I wasn't prepared. I was all sharpened the other way, but that's cool though.
Yeah, I want to do a 45-degree angle on a blade soon.
Cool. I got too many. So that's why I mentioned the spoon. So the spoon, okay, now we get that out of the way.
Yeah, but that's like a tea tool.
No, well, it's a tool, but, tool's a tool.
Tool's a tool.
So I guess in a sense, my favorite tool of all time probably has to be a hammer. Has to be Ben with a hammer. So
I was expecting this for technique. Okay.
We were shooting a video on doing a little wall cabinet. So Ben and Jeff were in the shop, and I was using my my awesome Banax dovetail saw to cut my dovetails in oak, and it was a little bit, I don't know what it was. Something wasn't really perfect about it, and I flipped it over and sighted down the blade along the teeth, and there's like a wave to it. It's like, oh, what is that? And I was freaking out. I was like, I'm going to have to send this back. Is the saw worn out? Do I just throw it away? What do I do? Because my blade is not flat anymore. So Ben said, give that to me. Just like hit it with a hammer. It's like, what? He goes, no, seriously. So he put it on my bench with the teeth into the tabletop, holding by the handle with the teeth down. What do you use? Do you use a dead blow, or you actually use a hammer?
I think I used dead blow.
Did a dead blow, and it just like smacked the spine of the saw. It's like, whoa, what's up? So he kind of looked, and it's like, no, not enough. So he took it and he like gave it a whack. And then he handed it back to me, and I flipped it over and sighted down the blade, and it was like straight. That was great.
Yeah, it's really
That's a hardware store trick.
actually no. So I have a bad axe that it was in my toolbox in the shop, and I pulled it out one day and it was crooked. I'm like, And I email Mark Harrell, who is like so on the ball customer service wise, and he immediately because I email him, I'm like, somebody messed with my saw. like could this happen by somebody messing with my saw? What's going on? Like, help me figure out who did it, because I was gonna tear something up, and because I love that saw. And he had like this. He must answer this question. He was like, "This is what you do." Blah blah blah. And it was like, wait, no, you want me to hit my saw with a hammer? And that's the beauty and the blessing and the curse of a folded back saw, is that you can reapply tension to it. And if you spend any time at Chris Gochner's, he does. He's got old distance that he refurbishes, and it's like it's a common occurrence for him to like slide down, bang. And then there it is. And once you get comfortable doing it, it's not as frightening, but
it worked, and I would not have done that myself.
You looked at me like, I'm going to kill you.
So that worked out. So my last favorite tool of all time of the week, really quickly, I apologize for meandering. I've been making Kumiko blocks for sale, which is a blessing and a curse, because they sell, but then I have to make them, which is not fun. Anyway, so I've been supplying people with like enough little Kumiko stock to like make a little square once they get it, which is kind of neat. That's kind of neither here nor there, except I got an email from a former student from a Kumiko class, and she said, don't have access to my table saw. I want to do some little Kumiko squares for Christmas gifts. Can I just buy some stock from you? And it's just like, I don't sell stock. I don't want to be doing that. But I had all this stock I was pre-making when I was selling the blocks, and I had like these little end cuts off of all the sticks, which were enough to make a square, but it was not. It wasn't clean, so I threw them all off to the side. But I had a whole bunch, so I just threw them all in a little envelope and sent her way. And she said, "What do I owe you?" He says, "Nothing. It's no big deal. Enjoy." Later on, she just said, "Well, can I have your address so I can just like send you a gift?" And it's like, I'm like, no, no, I don't. Fine. Here's my address. It's like just,
Did you give her your real address or your neighbor's?
I gave her my address. And so a while later, I got a little envelope, padded envelope in the mail. And it's like, oh, it's from her. That's really cool. And I open it up, and there's like a smaller envelope with like lots of, Japanese writing on it. Like it's like an international envelope from Japan. It's like, oh, this is cool. Okay. Because I thought, oh, wow, could it be tea? What could possibly be in here? It was like fairly light, and so I opened it up, and there's this little small box, almost like the size of a stick of chewing gum, a little bit bigger. I go, open it up. It's a pair of Japanese nail clippers.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And
did they cut on the pulse stroke?
They were just good. And the note was just like, I know you appreciate, sharp Japanese
that's
tools.
Awesome.
But it's like, oh my God, that's like the world's best gift that you can give to anybody, because who doesn't need one, and who doesn't like a really good pair of nail clippers? So there you go.
It's funny, small gifts can go a long way.
Yeah.
Just for some reason, I thought of years ago when I was visiting with Garrett Hack on a photo shoot. He had just started going to Japan and meeting craftspeople over there, and he had a group of Japanese tourists and woodworkers, and he was going to host them at his shop for a day. And he had crafted a bunch of chopsticks for them, and had made, tied a little ribbon around them, and then made little boxes for them as a nice little host gift. And I'm like, that is going to be so special for them. Just little things.
That's nice.
Nail clippers the same way.
Nail clipper. There you go.
I want Garrett Hack to craft me a pair of nail clippers.
I'm sure he could. It's going to cost you, though.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about someone's sharpening issues and cement shop floors. Let's be honest. Spending all of your time with non-woodworkers is lame, right? Maybe you should go to Fine Woodworking Live, April 26th through 28th in Southbridge, Massachusetts. It's going to be awesome. You're going to be surrounded by woodworkers, and famous woodworkers too. Chris Schwarz, Chris Gochner, Chris Bexford. We've got 3 Chris's, so it's good. I think you should head on over to finewoodworkinglive.com. Check out the presenter lineup. It's pretty overwhelmingly awesome. And come spend time with people who are like you, kind of weird and really into woodworking. See you there. Question number 3 is from Josh. I see pictures posted online where people have gotten a completely mirror polished edge on a chisel or plane iron. I'm using a Norton 1000 grit stone followed by a King 3000 grit stone followed by a Norton 8000 grit stone. I can't seem to get that mirror polish. I still end up with some scratches no matter how long I work with the 8000 grit stone, even when honing a new blade. I know Mike recommends 1000, 4000, 8000, but Lee Nielsen skips the intermediate grit, so I don't think the 3000 stone is my problem. I've thought about trying to get a finer stone than the 8000 that I have, but I don't want to have a $100 experiment.
I don't know. I mean, I would probably say the vast majority of the time if I got like a powerful magnifying glass up to my blades, even after I hone them to what I think is a pretty good effort, there's still going to be some fine scratches here or there. And I'd say if you have a mirror polish overall, but you have scratches here and there, it's an indicator, I think, of a couple things. Number one, the 8000 grit, your fine grit stone is just not capable of removing. There are some heavier scratches that happen somewhere that the 8000 grit stone is not capable of getting rid of. So by going to a finer grit stone, I don't think that's going to help you out. Your question that, okay, you've already got a 1000, 3000, you're moving up from there. Yeah, I mean, so I think your point where you don't think you need another intermediate grit, I think that's probably true. So you've got a Norton 1000, and then you've got a King 3000. That, I don't know. I mean, that could be the problem because Waterstones, especially Norton and King and every brand of Waterstone, the grits are sort of measured in different ways. In that a King 3000, I think, is actually a really, really fine stone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the opposite.
No.
Because I know like a Shapton 3000 and a Norton 1000 might be a little closer than...
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe it's because you're mixing and matching. The other thing is you could inadvertently, if you're using a honing guide, you may be bringing some coarser grit, from the 1000 to the 3000 or from the 3000 to the 8000.
On the wheel of the honing guide, you think?
Yeah. So you really kind of want to spread. And also, it's just... if there's a little drop of water that's still hanging on to the blade as you move from stone to stone, that water can contain the swarf or the grit from the stone in that too. So I try to be somewhat careful about wiping down my blade, like spraying it off, wiping it down, wiping down the wheel as I go from grit to grit.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
That might be a bigger issue.
Here's something that I had a similar problem, and I remember it's been a long time, but I approached Mike about it and said, hey, I'm not getting this fine polish. And you looked at the blade and you kind of thought, well, are you pressing too hard, on the grits? And I was. I think I was like, really, instead of letting the stone and the honing guide do its work, I was like, really monkeying down on it. And so I was really, scratching the blade. And since I stopped doing that, I think I'm getting a much better final polish. But I have the same brand stones, and I'm going up through the grits, so it's pretty consistent. But
yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing where if people start with like on diamond plates and then move up to Waterstones, I find that the diamond plates, because the grit is basically attached to the surface of the plate, even if it can be fairly fine, it could be sticking up fairly high.
yeah.
And I find that with diamond plates, and this has been years ago, and so maybe it's my technique is bad, but you try something once and it creates this memory, and the more you repeat it, the more it becomes fact. But my experience when I was using diamond plates is that I would get, even though the overall polish was okay, I would be getting scratches that were really, really deep that I couldn't reconcile with finer Waterstones, which is why I don't recommend starting on a diamond plate and then moving on. So
I changed because one of the places I really noticed the scratches hard to remove is when I was flattening it back. And I used to start off with a coarse diamond plate. And Mike pointed that out and said, don't do that.
I think that there is, from my experience, there is a break-in period with diamond stones.
Yeah,
where
definitely. But they work really fast at first.
Yo, man, do they ever? Yeah, and then it takes you a while to get rid of the scratches. So I have similar scratches in some of my chisels, and I think it's from the break-in period from my coarse diamond plate.
Okay.
And I don't care. They work.
If it works, it works. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just one of those like, stop looking at your blade. And
I agree. I was just going to say that, if your blade is cutting well, then you're good.
Yeah. If it's not cutting well, then you need to
yeah
address it.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, what technique you're using, Josh, whether you're using a honing guide or not. But I think one thing that may help you out, assuming you're using a honing guide, if you get a fresh grind on there and then throw it in the honing guide so that you're only removing a really thin line of steel along the cutting edge as you're sharpening, you're just removing a lot less steel that way, and you can spend less time on each stone, and you may give yourself a better chance. So let's say your 1,000 grit Norton is causing the scratches, and then maybe your King might be a little bit too fine to get, do a good job getting rid of them. But if it's only a thin line of steel that you're honing and you're having to remove less steel, it's giving that finer grit stones an easier job of reconciling that scratch pattern with a finer scratch pattern. That may give it to you, and do a good job, really spraying off the blade and the wheel and wiping them off as you go. That might help too.
That's a good fix. Right on. All right. Question number 4 is from Peter. The cement floor of my shop is unsealed and kind of wreaks havoc on my feet after a day in the shop. Keeping in mind that it's a rental, do you have any recommendations for an affordable flooring option that may help my feet and also protect my equipment from the sludge that melts off my wife's car? It needs to be solid enough that I can have my lathe on it and it won't increase vibrations.
I don't know.
If your wife's parked outside, it doubles your shop space and it gets rid of that one.
This is funny. I had experimented with a garage in a shop in my garage for like 5 minutes. It was just undoable in my situation, bringing a car in with the winters up here and everything. So I moved into the basement, but I knew there were products out there that I figured, well, maybe there's some sort of a barrier that he could put down between her stall and his work area. And so I couldn't come up with the search term. And of course, I went over to our esteemed colleague, Patrick McComb, who's the tools editor for Fine Home Building. And he knew right away. He said, search slush guard. And so they make a product for your car that's basically, if you think of it as like a car mat for your garage, the car drives in and it's a big rubber mat with a lip around the edge. And so when the snow melts or the rain comes off, it just goes into the mat and stays there. And yeah, look it up, Google it, buddy. But that's one thing I in that rental situation, I don't know if there's a solution for that, because if you try to do something temporary, it's going to flex and vibrate, because garage floors are just not known for being perfectly flat. And I don't know.
So get the slush guard and
work on the concrete.
Or put mats down.
Yeah. I don't like mats too much, especially around when I'm hand planing or doing that kind of work. I just feel, could be that I haven't found the right one, but I haven't found one yet that's not too squishy. I feel like I'm, walking on I don't know.
We were at David DeYard's doing a video, and his whole shop is covered in just like the Home Depot, what do you think, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch foam, whatever. And it's wall to wall. Like the whole thing is covered. And it was a joy. And when I took the class there too, I remember just thinking, this is such a joy to work on.
Are they squares or tiles or
They're,
big roll?
They're little
interlocking.
The dovetail things.
Yeah. And I've never been in a place that like went whole hog like that.
Yeah.
It's always been, right around the table saw, right around, just in spots. And the fact that you're not transitioning from concrete to a mat, because I used to have some mats down, like in front of the table saw, in front of the workbench, that's what I have right now, actually. It's a dream to spend time on. And if you drop something, it's not that big of a deal. I'm still having a hard time because I have a concrete floor, and same thing. If I'm on it for a while, it just kills me. I think I'm going to just invest in that.
Yeah, I put that down in one portion of my basement on the other side where, we have all our workout equipment where the kids used to play. And it was great for that. But I tried doing a section of that near my workbench, but it's still, I don't know. I felt like when I was, especially for handwork, like hand planing, I never felt like I was
because
getting
it moves.
Yeah, so maybe
And the fact that he did wall to wall, it doesn't move. And he cut out where his lathe is. Okay. So the lathe is sitting on the concrete floor. The feet of the lathe are sitting on the concrete floor, not on the pads.
And it's a pretty dense rubber. It's not a soft.
Not a lot of spring
foam.
to it.
Yeah, it's not like a gel pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like the ones that you might buy for, in a kitchen supply or whatever. The other thing, and I think it was, no, this is Kevin 0611, which is Kevin in Brunswick, Maine. It's Kevin in New York who recently posted, Kevin Almeida, I think, who posted on Instagram. He has, I don't know if it's wall to wall, but he bought stall mats from Tractor Supply.
Right.
Stall mats, what are they?
They're
like for horse stalls. Really, they're, I don't know,
they're 4x6.
And they're maybe like 3/4 of an inch thick.
Yeah, and they're heavy.
Yeah.
And I've been on, every time I go get chicken feed, I've been eyeing up
because there's a whole stack underneath the trailer. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think I do want to go wall to wall. So
yeah, it's pretty easy to do a little floating plywood floor, get some rigid insulation down.
Another idea. Yep.
Yeah, but I think if you for that, you probably really should be anchoring the frame to the floor. Otherwise, it's going to, dip and whatnot.
They might potato chip too.
Yeah, that's the only. I mean, he might be able to ask his landlord, "Hey, do you mind if I sink some screws in?" But
does he want to invest that money and time into it? Whereas, at least with the tiles, with the interlocking tiles, you just pull them up and take them with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and you keep the lathe on the concrete, like you mentioned. You'd probably be in good shape.
Right on.
I'm going back out to the garage. No.
Actually, now that I think about it, I think Peter's in Brunswick too. You and Kevin 0611 should start a guild.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Also, anything you throw down is going to keep your feet a lot warmer too.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, he's in Maine, so it's like his feet are frozen anyways.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They're tough.
All right. Let's read some listener comments. And there have been a lot of great comments. And I need to say on episode 181 and 180, there's a lot of structural engineering talk going on in the comments, both on the website and in YouTube. And I don't understand any of it, but everyone sounds really smart. So thumbs up. But it does make me want to assemble a post of all of the comments and then send it to an engineer and see who's right. But let's see. From Kevin 0611, let's see. Regarding Dean's question in STL 181, I know quite a few people who are happy with jointer planer combos, but if possible, try and steer clear of a contractor table saw. As a recent convert to a cabinet saw, I still can't believe how much quieter, more stable, precise, and just more pleasurable it is to use. I think it's well worth sacrificing some floor space to make room for one in your shop. And this comment made me think, because Dean was moving into a second shop and it's a little small, it also made me think that if you just get a cabinet saw and you don't have much space, don't put both wings on it. Don't put a 32-inch
like a
fence
side
on
feed
it. Just
table.
cut it down.
Yeah.
And then, because he was cutting tenons, concerned about switching to a contractor saw for accuracy. And
even a contractor saw is going to have a long fence and side feed table.
I mean, my contractor saw takes up the same footprint per se
As a
because
cabinet saw.
of the it's got a big big
but
fence.
if it was a fold-up saw and he can stow it away.
I don't have a job site, so
that's a different.
I've got the contractor. Jobby.
Also, in reference to STL 181 from Stefan, Ben, it's a plastic pair of calipers. Whoever bought it should have opened the package, removed the calipers, deposited the calipers and packaged straight into the appropriate trash and recycling bins, gone and bought a decent pair of calipers. And then another comment from Mama or whatever. I love my plastic calipers, plenty accurate, and it's one tool I've never needed to upgrade. I keep several of them laying around the shop. So they're probably both right.
Are we talking about dial caliper?
Not dial, but
Just like that.
Just plastic measuring caliper, yeah.
Huh. Oh, no, like that. Okay.
Look at you, Jeff. Wow.
Dang. Okay.
I guess this was my smooth move last week.
It's probably like, well, what are you trying to measure?
Well, the end of it was broken off, not to rehash it for everyone. But
Checking your
two.
2x4s to make sure they're, kind of 1.5 inches roughly.
1.5 inches, give or take, says the caliper. All right. On iTunes, a couple of 5-star comments from Robert the Bald One. I just read that. That's funny. I have been listening to Shop Talk Live for a couple of years now and always look forward to new episodes. These guys are easy to listen to and frequently have good info for the fine woodworker. Ugly woodworkers, too. Get it? No? All right. From Taxi Driver. This panel discussion.
You looking at me?
I was not looking at anyone. This panel discussion podcast has been around for a long time, and new episodes are reliably issued every 2 weeks. Very few podcasts can claim that kind of longevity. The panel consists of professional-ish woodworkers. I added the ish.
Got the quotes.
Even when they discuss stuff I can't use, I find it fascinating and always learn something new. Thanks. All right, I have a recommendation. Get a specific container that you put nuts and bolts in and arbor nuts in when you take things apart in your shop.
Yes.
How come?
Because someone was changing the stone on his grinder and lost the left-handed arbor nut on the grinder, and it is gone.
But you had a presence of mind to capture the episode on Instagram story.
Yeah, it was...
Where is it? I can't find it. Where is it? It was awesome. It's like a scene out of Blair Witch or something. It was great.
He was... I'm still worked up over it, and I still have not looked it up to order a new arbor nut. I need a 5/8 inch 12 TPI or whatever arbor nut.
Awesome.
That's not $20 because it's the same size as table saw arbor nuts, and they're all $20. I'm not paying $20 for this.
Make one. Make one out of wood.
I don't know if my frustration is apparent to all.
Just a little bit.
Anybody else have recommendations?
I do. I'm going to go back to one of my earlier comments. Keep a pair of scissors in your shop. Don't let anyone else have them. Especially if you have children.
Keep them tied to a string.
I'm going to put an alarm on it.
Shop scissors are key. Mike?
No, not today.
Not today.
That's all for this episode of Shop Talk Live. If you have questions you'd like us to answer on the show, send them into shoptalk@taunton.com. If you're watching on YouTube, click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening. Y'all.
Shut up.
Which one am I? I am two. I'm two. Oh.
That's me you're turning up there.
No, you're not.
Why is my volume going up?
It shouldn't be.
Am I having a stroke?